brother-in-law sabotaged my wedding cake with hot sauce out of revenge, and now our families are in a spicy feud. A couple of months ago, I met this woman and we immediately hit it off. We'd done a few activities together, tried some new places to eat, ran menial errands that she somehow managed to make fun. Even something as dull as getting the car washed turned into an adventure with her. We'd spent the night at each other's places a few times, and honestly, I loved her company. I had a work trip coming up and, over dinner one evening, I found myself mentioning that I was considering bringing someone along. The conversation organically shifted, and in a pretty casual way, I ended up inviting her, and she seemed into it. About a couple weeks later, she let me know she'd love to come. She'd never been to the city I was headed to, and always wanted to explore it. I was genuinely happy. Finally, a work trip would be fun. The plan was simple. We'd be there for 6 days. I'd have a 3-day conference during the daytime, so she'd be free to do as she pleased, and at night, we could discover the city together. I've got to admit, communication has never been easy for me. I do put in a lot of effort, but the success of that effort is questionable. I try to keep things chill when I travel. After all, things rarely go exactly as planned, and that's all part of the experience. If something doesn't work out, I'm ready to adjust. The problem was, I failed to communicate all that to her before the trip. Bad omens appeared early. We got to the gate for our 7-hour flight late, unlike me, since I always insist on arriving early. There was no overhead storage left for our carry-ons. She brushed it off. No big deal, I'll keep them at my feet. We took our seats, window and middle, side by side. I knock out on airplanes, but this was her first flight across time zones, and jet lag was looming. To make things worse, she started her period just before takeoff. After a meal, I crashed hard. I had let her know she could wake me for anything. When I woke, still groggy, she tried mentioning she needed the lavatory. I must have mumbled something entirely unhelpful. When the guy sitting between us finally got up, I let her know, but by then she had wrapped herself in the blanket, turned away, and didn't reply. I tried to get her attention, but she shrugged me off. Eventually, I just gave up. Later, I realized why. She was crying because of something I'd done. After the long, draining flight, we finally landed. I felt passably rested, but we were both exhausted. We grabbed our luggage, got some food, and then it happened. A heated argument over what had just happened. I tried, probably inarticulately, to explain myself. She walked away. When I found her again, I did my best to take care of her immediate needs, went to the airport pharmacy, bought her some medication, and then called a taxi instead of my usual ritual of navigating public transportation, just to get her to the hotel as fast as possible. But the hotel wasn't much better. They had given us the wrong type of room. We argued at the front desk until they switched us, only to find that the room was sweltering, the air conditioning was dead. She lost it, convinced it would ruin her week. I tried my best to fix things. I got the staff to bring us a fan and found out the AC wouldn't be fixed until the next day. She stormed out and started texting me from the courtyard, saying she wanted to go home that night. I frantically scoured for flights, but there was nothing available until the next day, and even then, I couldn't get her to commit to leaving. I finally asked if we could talk in person. She agreed to meet in the courtyard. I wasn't angry, just deeply disappointed in myself and the mess we were in. I tried to be calm and understanding. She broke down, sobbing in front of me, and then walked off again. I spent some time researching hotels, flights, and also realized I hadn't eaten. I set out to look for her because I needed to give her the food I'd bought, and bumped into her just outside the hotel. She went back to the room and fell asleep. I, needing to decompress, went out to eat and stashed leftovers for her in the fridge. Later, I tried to re-enter the room quietly, ninja style, for a shower. As I finished, she woke, needed the bathroom urgently, so I darted out. She returned to sleep, and eventually I dozed off, too. Morning came, and she finally gave me some much-needed context. I understood fully, none of this was really her fault, nor mine. She decided to tough it out and stay the rest of the week. We mapped out some activities, spent the day mostly in good spirits, and enjoyed ourselves. But that night, trouble came knocking again. We reached the second-to-last place on our list, and I suggested checking out another spot, but it would close in about 45 minutes, far too little time to actually experience it. For me, no big deal. For her, it was another strike against my planning. She told me, again, that I wasn't good enough at planning. I acknowledged my mistake, even as it stung. She suggested revisiting someplace we'd already seen, but at night. I had to be up early for business, and after my earlier planning fail, I was being cautious with our timing. She didn't agree, and as I tried to explain my reasoning in more detail, she just stopped talking to me altogether. We took the metro back to our hotel in absolute silence. Once inside, she went straight to bed. I asked her if she was ready to talk things over with a clear head. She insisted we'd spoken enough. I wasn't done saying my piece, but I let it go for the moment. Now here I am, sitting elsewhere in the hotel, wondering how this kept happening. I want so badly to make this a good trip for her, but no matter what, I keep messing it up. At least tomorrow, I'll escape into my conference for a while, a brief reprieve from this ongoing nightmare. Update 1. After everything that had gone down with my travel partner, I needed some space. Tensions had been high after a string of issues between us, so I took some time for myself in hopes that she would cool off as well. When I came back to our hotel room wanting to talk, I found her already asleep, so I climbed into bed quietly and went to sleep too. The next morning, all I wanted was to finally hash things out, but she refused to talk. So, I put it aside and threw myself into my work. That day ended up being fantastic, energizing, intellectually stimulating, and a real breath of fresh air. Afterward, I went back to the hotel to meet her, still hoping we could finally talk things through. She brushed it off with, "The past is the past, let's not dwell on it." I decided to go with the flow, and we headed out for dinner together. We had planned to explore the city at night afterward, but she said she was too tired, so that never happened. The following day, I got lost in my work again, even giving a couple of presentations, and I was in serious need of relaxation by evening. We had a happy hour after work, and soon enough she messaged me to come join her. I did, thinking maybe things would be better. It was fine at first, we laughed, had a decent meal, until I said something she disagreed with. Suddenly, she stormed out, leaving me alone at the restaurant. I paid the bill, then tried to talk to her outside, but she didn't want to hear it. Frustrated, I blurted out that I'd had enough and that she was getting on my nerves, maybe not in the kindest way, but I wasn't trying to be mean. It was like pulling the pin on a grenade. She exploded, heckling me, throwing insults, just generally being nasty. When we got off the metro at our stop, I tried one more olive branch, asking if she wanted me to buy metro tickets for her return later. She only responded quietly, "No, it's okay." The next day it rained, and I told her about an activity I'd booked for us in the afternoon. She said she didn't want to do it. I told her I'd send a message later to check in. Around the time I needed to start back to the hotel, she finally decided she wanted to go. I headed back, and we went to our final planned outing together. It was fine, I guess. Not great, not terrible. On the way back, something I said or did set her off again. The nasty comments started, not as bad as before, but unpleasant all the same. I did my best to keep my cool, but eventually I just couldn't take it anymore. I told her the discussion was pointless, that I was done, using the same phrase she had thrown at me repeatedly all week. That set her off even more. She unleashed it all, calling me pathetic, a loser, and whatever else she could think up. I tried not to let it get to me, and I didn't respond, which only made her angrier. We reached the metro station, but the entrance didn't sell tickets. Out of nowhere, before I could even get to the turnstile, she aimed a powerful backward kick at me. I extricated myself from the situation as best I could, finding another entrance to buy my ticket. As I walked toward my train, I ran into her again. I tried to ignore her, but she started screaming that I was following her, and when I attempted to walk a different way, she started following me. I refused to engage, but that only infuriated her. She started trying to hit me, getting in my way, while I kept calmly telling her to remove herself from my path. Desperately, I asked a passerby to call the police. There was no way I could defend myself, being a man in this situation, but he just brushed me off with some silly remark. Things escalated, and she made a huge scene, being as dramatic as possible. I begged her to just leave me alone so I could go, but she wouldn't let me leave until I essentially promised I wouldn't abandon her there. Suddenly, she spat in my face. To extricate myself, I agreed to help her get home. On the train ride back, I sat as far away from her as possible. Later, she wanted to talk about what was going on and the plans moving forward, but I just didn't have it in me. I politely asked her to give me some space, which she finally did, at least until we reached our metro stop. Once we got to the street, I told her straight up that I couldn't be around her anymore. I said I'd go back to the room, she could pack her things, but she wasn't staying with me that night. If the hotel didn't have anything available, I'd help her find another place to stay. She claimed she didn't feel safe in the city and tried to justify physically attacking me, saying she was afraid I would leave her. I kept reassuring her I had no intention of hurting her, but it was clear she knew she'd crossed a line. I decided to go straight to work and give myself time to cool off. From the office, I tried to update her, at her request, about when I'd be back at the hotel. That's when I realized she had blocked me on every messaging app we used. Panic set in. Was she destroying my stuff? My passport? I called a friend for help, someone I could trust to keep things calm in case she lashed out again. Without hesitation, he agreed to come. He urged me to ask the front desk agent to talk to her first, to keep things from escalating. The agent, clearly uneasy, agreed and came with us to the room. The agent knocked and asked if I could retrieve my belongings. My travel partner immediately started to accuse me of making up drama and making a scene, but I just wanted to collect my things and leave. When I asked for my passport, which she had, she said yes at first, then changed her mind. She wanted to use it as leverage. If I gave her cash for a cab, she'd give my passport back. I didn't have local currency, so I gave her money from home for her trip. She wouldn't release the passport until I did as she demanded. At this point, I thought about calling the police. I asked the front desk agent for help, but in the end, I just caved and got her the money. My friend stood beside me like a hero the whole time. Finally, I handed over the money, got my passport back, and left. My friend kept reassuring me on the walk out, reminding me I absolutely did the right thing. Now I'm sitting in a different hotel, room to myself, feeling safe for the first time in days. She doesn't know where I am, hasn't tried to contact me, and when it's time to go home, I'll make sure the desk agents at the airport know my situation so I can stay safe on my flight home. I just wanted to add a bit more context to everything that's been happening. I never saw myself as completely blameless for her reactions, except for when she physically attacked me. The last thing I want is to come across as vague or evasive, it's just a lot to put into words. After everything that happened between us, I started thinking a lot about what the next step should be, especially with the upcoming flight we're supposed to take together. Things have gotten so intense that I can practically feel the tension in the air before we've even set foot in the airport. Every conversation seems to teeter on the edge of an argument, and I have to watch my words, half expecting an emotional outburst or escalation from her. And I'm genuinely anxious. What if she decides to start yelling at the airport, or worse, claims I've been violent with her in front of everyone? The thought of being publicly humiliated, or even kicked off the plane or arrested, runs through my mind every time I let myself replay past events. The anxiety is making it hard to sleep, to eat, and I constantly check over my shoulder, waiting for whatever will happen next. This isn't the sort of paranoia I'm used to feeling, but it's not baseless, either. I've been on the receiving end of manufactured drama before. I know how fast a situation can escalate when emotions are high, and how quickly people jump to conclusions when confronted with a loud accusation. Now, all I can think about is changing my flight, anything to avoid being in a small, confined space with her, and to avoid giving her any opportunity to turn things even uglier. I'm not sure if that will be the solution, but it feels like my only chance right now to get through this without her cornering me or painting me as someone I'm not. The whole situation is exhausting. I just want to get away from it all safely, not only physically, but emotionally as well. Update 2. I made it home safely, without any further incident. In the end, I decided not to change my flight. When I arrived at the airport, I approached the desk agent and explained the situation, making sure they knew to keep her a safe distance from me and to put us in different boarding groups. After I relayed everything, the agent asked if I was all right and suggested we involve their supervisor. The supervisor came over, and again I had to recount what happened. He advised that I board with a particular group, maximizing the gap between us. I followed his instructions, but despite our efforts, I still ended up in close proximity to her. She didn't do anything, thankfully, but the encounter left me visibly shaken. The remainder of my flight passed without any more drama. Once we landed and I was back in my own country, I had to clear customs. That turned out to be the second time I ended up too near her, but once more, nothing bad happened. Then, at the gate for my next flight, I followed the same procedure as before, talking to the desk agent and trying to keep some distance. Midway through my conversation, she appeared, checking to ensure she was far from me, but the moment I saw her, I just walked away immediately. From that point on, I was able to fully avoid any further contact or interaction. Arriving home, I asked a good friend to pick me up at the airport. At that moment, I desperately needed a familiar and supportive face. The next day, I headed over to the local police station to report the incident, though I wasn't planning to press charges, just to document what happened. That interaction didn't go well. The responding officer, a woman, noted how nervous I seemed and asked if my anxiety stemmed from what she might say about me. As our conversation went on, it became clear she wasn't really interested in helping me, and honestly, I wasn't in a great headspace to give a comprehensive account at that moment. Eventually, I took my ID back and asked for her contact card, which immediately seemed to sour the whole atmosphere. Things got tense, back and forth, until I asked what caused the change in her demeanor. She said it was because I retrieved my ID and requested her card. She must have thought I planned to file a report about her. Then she abruptly asked if I needed to see a doctor, but I told her I didn't. Suddenly, emotions overwhelmed me, and when I finally broke down, her attitude softened instantly. She told me I should call her before coming back in to give a proper written statement. That evening, I met a friend for drinks and confided in her about everything that had happened. She and I have traveled together a lot, and she reminded me, even at my worst, I'm never a monster. Today, I had a session with my psychologist. I described the entire sequence of events in detail. Her initial response was simply, "Wow." She told me that my body language and the way I recounted things made my account very credible. I brought up the possibility of BPD that a few people had mentioned, and we discussed the situation from that perspective. Of course, my psychologist reminded me that this was only my version, and the other person would undoubtedly have a different story. I know I'll never get the full closure or real explanation for what happened from her side. What's become obvious to me is that I recognized something was off. This wasn't the same person I'd known and traveled with before. I'm convinced a mix of old issues, travel stress, sleep deprivation, and even discomfort from her period triggered something in her. I can't hold her fully responsible for things beyond her control, no matter how difficult it was. For anyone who thinks I was vague, I truly wasn't. I've tried my hardest to be clear and to provide context. I wasn't framing myself to look better, or leaving out the ugly parts. Whatever mistakes I made, whether it was being impatient, miscommunicating, making the wrong face, whatever, I did not deserve the verbal and physical abuse I endured. For those who suggest I put up with her because of her looks or because I wanted to sleep with her, absolutely not. Her value has always been so much more than her appearance. The person I first met at home was kind, thoughtful, adventurous, a completely different side. Update 3. Last Friday, I was at my usual coffee shop near work when I noticed someone staring at me from across the room. When I looked up, my blood ran cold. It was her sister, Maya. I'd met her briefly when we first started hanging out, seemed nice enough back then. Now she was walking straight toward my table. "We need to talk," she said, sitting down without invitation. My heart started racing, but I tried to stay calm. Maya told me that her sister, let's call her Emma, had been hospitalized 2 days after returning home. Apparently, she'd had what Maya described as a complete breakdown and was currently on a psychiatric hold. My first instinct was genuine concern, despite everything that happened. But then Maya dropped the bombshell. Emma had been telling everyone, family, friends, co-workers, that I had physically assaulted her during the trip. She'd shown up at her parents' house with bruises on her arms and scratches on her face, claiming I'd attacked her in the hotel room. I felt sick. I explained to Maya what actually happened, about Emma attacking me at the metro station, about having to get hotel security involved. Maya listened, and I could see the doubt creeping into her expression. She's always been dramatic, Maya admitted quietly. But I've never seen her like this before. She keeps talking about how you abandoned her in a foreign country, how you turned everyone against her. What Maya told me next made my skin crawl. Emma had apparently created fake social media accounts and had been messaging my friends and family, sending them doctored screenshots of our conversations, making it look like I'd been threatening her. She'd even contacted my workplace, claiming I was dangerous and unstable. I showed Maya the photos I'd taken of my own bruises after the metro incident, and the texts from Emma where she'd demanded money in exchange for my passport. Maya went pale. "Jesus," she whispered. "I need to call my parents." The next few days were hell. My boss called me in for a meeting after HR received Emma's complaint. Fortunately, I had documentation, the police report I'd filed, photos, even the hotel's incident report that I'd requested before leaving. My company was understanding, but I could see the way some coworkers looked at me differently. Then Tuesday happened. I was leaving the gym when I saw a familiar car parked across the street. Emma was sitting in the driver's seat, just watching me. When our eyes met, she started the engine and drove off. This happened 3 more times over the next 2 days, at the grocery store, outside my apartment, once even at my friend's house where I was having dinner. I called a police officer who'd taken my original report. She was much more helpful this time, especially after I showed her the photos of Emma following me. She advised me to document everything and said they'd increased patrols in my neighborhood. Yesterday, everything escalated. I came home to find my apartment door slightly ajar. My hands were shaking as I called 911. The police found that someone had broken in. Nothing major was taken, but my personal photos had been scattered around, some torn up. My laptop was moved, and there were strange messages written on my bathroom mirror in what looked like lipstick. You can't hide from the truth. The officer found fingerprints on the mirror that didn't match mine. When I mentioned Emma's name, she nodded grimly. "We've been looking for her," she said. "She was supposed to check in with her psychiatric team yesterday and never showed up. I'm staying at my friend's place now." Maya has been texting me updates. Apparently Emma's parents are beside themselves with worry and have hired a private investigator to find her. Maya believes my version of events now, especially after Emma's behavior has become increasingly erratic with the whole family. But here's the part that's eating at me. Maya mentions something that makes me think I never really knew Emma at all. Apparently, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. There was an ex-boyfriend 2 years ago who had to get a restraining order, and another guy she'd traveled with who ended up having similar problems. Maya said the family had always made excuses, blamed it on stress or her job, but now she's wondering if there's been a pattern all along. I keep thinking about those first few weeks when Emma and I were getting to know each other. How charming she was, how she seemed to understand me perfectly, how quickly things moved between us. Maya mentioned that Emma had been asking detailed questions about my work schedule, my friends, even my family situation, right from the beginning. Things I thought were just normal getting to know you conversations might have been something else entirely. The police have advised me to stay vigilant. They've issued a bolo for Emma's car and are coordinating with the psychiatric facility where she was being treated. Maya is supposed to call me if Emma contacts any family members. I can't sleep. Every sound outside makes me jump. I've changed my phone number, but I'm scared to go back to my normal routine. My psychologist says this level of obsession and manipulation suggests something much more serious than what we initially discussed. The worst part? I still have moments where I doubt myself, where I wonder if I somehow caused this or if I'm overreacting. But then I remember the look in her eyes at that metro station, the calculated way she tried to use my passport as leverage, and I know that whatever I thought I knew about Emma was a lie. Update 4. I thought the worst was behind me. I was wrong. 3 days after my last update, Maya called me at 2 a.m., sobbing hysterically. "She's at our parents' house," she choked out. "Emma showed up an hour ago, completely disheveled, claiming you've been stalking her. She has photos, recordings. I don't know what to believe anymore. I threw on clothes and drove to Maya's apartment. When I arrived, she was pacing her living room, phone pressed to her ear, arguing with someone, her parents, I assumed. When she hung up, her face was ashen. "Show me," I said. Maya pulled out her phone and started scrolling through messages Emma had sent to the family group chat. The photos made my stomach drop. There I was at the coffee shop, at the gym, outside my friend's house, all the places I'd spotted Emma watching me. But in these photos, the angles made it look like I was the one following her. She'd somehow positioned herself to make me appear as the stalker. But the recordings were worse. Audio clips of what sounded like our conversations from the trip, but they were edited, spliced together to make me sound threatening, controlling, even violent. My own voice saying things I'd never said, taken completely out of context and reassembled into something sinister. "My parents want to call the police on you," Maya whispered. "But I told them to wait until I talked to you first." That's when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I know you're with Maya. Stop turning my family against me. We need to talk. Meet me at Riverside Park in an hour, or I'll send everything to your job, your friends, everyone." Maya saw me reading and grabbed my arm. "Don't go. This is insane." But I was tired of running, tired of looking over my shoulder. "I'm going," I said. "But I'm calling the police first." The officer I'd been working with, Detective Rodriguez, agreed to have units nearby but advised me to wear a wire. "If she's as unstable as you've described, we need evidence of her making threats or admitting to the break-in." An hour later, I was sitting on a bench in Riverside Park, heart pounding, with a tiny recording device taped to my chest. Emma emerged from behind a tree like something out of a nightmare, hair matted, clothes wrinkled, but that same calculated look in her eyes I remembered from the metro station. "You came," she said, sitting down beside me like we were old friends meeting for coffee. "Emma, you need help. Maya told me you were hospitalized." "Maya doesn't understand what we have," she interrupted. "None of them do. You felt it too, those first few weeks. The connection. You can't just throw that away because of one bad trip." The casual way she dismissed everything that happened chilled me. "One bad trip? Emma, you attacked me. You broke into my apartment." She laughed, actually laughed. "I had to get your attention somehow. You changed your number, you're staying somewhere else. How else was I supposed to reach you? You weren't supposed to reach me at all. What you did was illegal, what I did was fight for us." Her voice rose sharply, then dropped to an eerie whisper. "Do you know how many nights I've spent planning our future? I had it all figured out. We could move somewhere new, start fresh. I even looked at apartments in Portland." My blood went cold. "Emma, we went on one trip together. We barely knew each other. Don't say that." Her eyes flashed dangerously. "I know everything about you. Your morning routine, your favorite coffee order, that scar on your shoulder from when you were 12. I know you better than anyone ever has." Details I'd never shared with her. Things she could only know if she'd been watching me for much longer than I realized. "How long have you been following me?" I asked quietly. She smiled then, and it was the most terrifying expression I'd ever seen. "Since before we met at that bar." "Did you really think it was coincidence? I've been watching you for weeks, learning your patterns, figuring out the perfect way to approach you. You're so predictable, it was almost too easy." The recording device felt like it was burning against my chest. "Why me?" "Because you're lonely," she said simply. I could see it. The way you eat lunch by yourself, how you never brought anyone home, how eager you were when I showed interest. Lonely people are so grateful for attention. I stood up, every instinct screaming at me to run. "This conversation is over." But as I turned to leave, she grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "Sit down. We're not finished. Let go of me, Emma. Not until you understand." Her grip tightened. "I've sacrificed everything for you. My job, my relationship with my family, my mental health. You owe me. I don't owe you anything." That's when she pulled out her phone with her free hand and showed me the screen. It was a live video call, and on the other end was my sister, Sarah, tied to a chair in what looked like her own living room. "Emma, what the hell? Your sister's fine," Emma said calmly. "For now. My friend Rachel is watching her. Rachel's been very helpful actually, she's the one who's been taking all those photos of you. Turns out when you tell people someone has been abusing you, they're very willing to help track down the dangerous ex." Sarah's eyes were wide with terror, duct tape over her mouth. I could see tears streaming down her face. "Let her go. This is between us." "Exactly." Emma's voice was sickeningly sweet. "So let's work this out like adults. Come home with me tonight. Give us another chance. If you do, Rachel will untie your sister and leave. If you don't." She tilted the phone so I could see Rachel holding a knife. My hands were shaking as I looked around the park. Where were the police? Detective Rodriguez said they'd be nearby. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Okay, Emma. Let's go." But as we stood up, I caught a glimpse of movement in the trees. Thank God, backup was here. What happened next was chaos. Police emerged from multiple directions as Emma lunged for me, screaming that I'd betrayed her. In her rage, she dropped the phone, and I could hear my sister's muffled cries from the ground. As they cuffed Emma, she was still yelling, "You'll never be safe. I know where everyone you love lives. This isn't over. Detective Rodriguez immediately called for units to Sarah's address while Emma was being loaded into the police car. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Sarah was safe. Rachel had fled the moment she heard sirens in the background of Emma's call. But even now, 3 days later, with Emma in custody on multiple charges including kidnapping and stalking, I can't shake what she said about knowing everything about me, about watching me for weeks before we met. Maya visited me yesterday. She brought a box of Emma's things their parents had found in her childhood bedroom, photos of me dating back months, printouts of my social media, even a detailed schedule of my daily routines. At the bottom was a notebook filled with her handwriting, plans for our relationship, scripts of conversations she wanted to have with me, even floor plans of my apartment. There's something else, Maya said quietly, pulling out a letter addressed to me. She wrote this before the trip. My mom found it hidden in her old desk. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, in Emma's neat handwriting, by the time you read this, you'll understand how perfect we are together. I've spent so long preparing for us, learning everything about you, becoming exactly what you need. The trip will be our beginning. I've planned every moment to show you how incredible our life could be. And if you try to run like the others did, well, I've learned from those mistakes too. This time will be different. This time, I won't let you go. The others. There had been others, and apparently, I wasn't even her first obsession. Maya said the police found similar notebooks for at least 3 other men over the past 5 years. The investigation is ongoing. I'm in therapy twice a week now. My psychologist says it could take months to fully process what she calls predatory love bombing followed by psychological terrorism. The technical terms don't make it feel any less surreal. Sarah's staying with me for a while. Neither of us feels safe alone yet. We've installed a security system, changed all our locks, and I'm considering relocating entirely once the legal proceedings are finished. The hardest part isn't the fear, though, it's the doubt. Emma was right about one thing: I was lonely. And for those first few weeks, before everything went to hell, I was happier than I'd been in years. It makes me question my judgment about everything, everyone. How do you trust your own instincts when they led you so completely astray?